Hello everybody. This morning I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a constellation. People always ask, and the teaching I'm giving this morning is what I usually do in each introductory workshop, so people understand what it is we're doing here. So the work is called systemic constellation work, but most people know it as family constellation work, because we began discovering it in the context of family constellations. It was discovered and developed by a gentleman from Germany called Bert Hellinger, and he was a missionary in the Zulu tribe for many years. He was a Catholic priest, and he discovered the ancestral impact of things in family systems and in the tribe. And when he came back working as a psychotherapist with people, he started to include that intergenerational transmission in his work. And out of that, he developed family constellation work. We now call it systemic constellation work because it equally applies to other systems, such as an organization or a school or any place where people come together to do something. So systemic constellation work covers both of that. So what are we doing here today? So if you're coming in to this workshop, you most likely are coming in with some issue. And I'm just going to make a little cross for that issue. You see the middle bubble here is actually this present moment. It's the presence. This is where we are. And when we work, we always begin with this moment and what it is in this moment that you are struggling with. And that can be anything from an emotional issue, an anxiety or a depression or something like that. Or it can be a physical issue, an illness you can't shake. Or all the many things of, I can't hold on to money, my marriages always fail, things that you find in your life repeating themselves and you cannot shake. That is what we come with as the main issue. So you're invited to bring your issue and we will help you explore it. But we explore it very differently than you would in psychotherapy. I'm actually a psychologist by training, so I do both, the individual exploration and individual work, but I find that this work is best done in groups. The other influences we look at, you see down here, the influence, of course, is the past that influences the present. And that is anything in the past that is not integrated, that is not complete, that hasn't finished itself. Those influences always move into the present moment in an attempt to complete themselves. From the past come different impacts. Here on the left, you have in your DNA a lot of influences from your ancestors. And these are often physical things like your hair color, your body, how it looks and functions. These are often also gifts and talents and strength from your family system. And if all goes well, this love and all that comes with it moves forward into the present moment and becomes a tremendous resource for you. Because love flows forward in family systems, and so do all the strength. The other influence, and that is where we work a lot, you will see on this side, that's these three bubbles. And they are three different layers, but they are all, as you see here with this arrow, influences from the past into the present moment. So I'm going to go through the bubbles because that is where we will be working today. The first bubble here is your individual life. Individual. So that means whatever happened in your lifetime that's influenced something and hasn't completed itself, that's what we're looking for. So the first thing we look is this issue you have connected to your individual life. So for example, if you were born and when you were 3 your mother died, that is a huge traumatic impact in your individual life, and it may have repercussions throughout your life. Maybe you don't ever trust anyone again. Maybe you never feel safe in the world. So this impact here may very well be connected with your struggle of today. So that's the first thing we look at. What's in your individual history that might be causing this? And we do that in psychotherapy. That's a big strength of psychotherapy. However, after that, if nothing here rings a bell for this, then we look in the second bubble, and that is your family system. So your family system is your immediate ancestry. We usually look about 3 generations, your parents or grandparents, maybe your great-grandparents, but often just you, grandparents and parents. And we're looking at what happened here that is incomplete and not processed. Because trauma freezes something in your body. If something happens that your nervous system cannot process, it will be encapsulated and frozen somewhere in your body, and that's where it stays until you're capable of moving that through your body and releasing it. And these big traumas that may be sitting here, they don't go away. So if your grandmother had a terrible thing happen to her, let's turn this a generation further, your grandmother lost her mother when she was 3. This doesn't go away. Then your mother can feel in her mother that hole. And so unless this is fully processed, this loss actually is carried forward into the next generation. And that is the biggest insight of systemic constellation work, that what we carry is often from ancestral unresolved trauma. And when we started doing this work, people thought it was completely woo-woo and out there. But now science is caught up. There are a lot of experiments. The word epigenetic transmission is suddenly all over everything. So we have proof now that that is correct, that unresolved trauma moves forward through the generations. One of my teachers, Thomas Hübel, he likes to use the image of the carry-on luggage. He simply says, well, whatever isn't happened here will be put in a carry-on luggage, and they keep it, and then when they are leaving the body and they're dying, the next generation will pick up that carry-on luggage and will try to work it the best they can, but if they don't resolve it, it keeps moving forward, and it ends up right here in the present moment. So we look in your family system, and there are a number of things that we look for, which I won't go into right now. They will be in the teaching modules of the training, that have tremendous impact on the next generation. But for example, the one I used, death of a parent, has a very powerful impact. So do things like murder in a family system, or people who are excluded, things like that. So this is our second inquiry. If it doesn't come from the individual history, is it from the family system? That's most of the work in systemic constellation work, is looking at this larger system and what role do you play in that system to help forward this healing. And it sounds strange, but trauma heals when it returns again and someone is capable of feeling it and holding it and releasing it fully. That's when it stops having an energetic charge that will influence your life. And by the way, a lot of people come because they see this issue or an issue here repeated in their children. Because again, if you do not clear it, the carry-on luggage goes to the next generation. So sometimes we don't really want to go through all that for our own sake. But when we watch our children develop, for example, something that we saw our grandfather struggle with, wow, then we feel like we better go looking what this is and what we can do about it. The last bubble, and that is usually a much larger bubble, this is the collective, and this is cultural, this is what you are born into. So the collective is very hard to feel because you're born into it and it seems normal. For example, I was born right after World War II, and all of Germany had a layer of silence. Nobody spoke about the war. It was too painful. So I grew up in that bubble of relative silence about immediate history, and it seemed completely normal to me until I started learning a lot more about how to access collective trauma in the world. So what we have here in the collective is what a family system is born into. So in my case, it was World War II. Each culture, each country has various versions of collective trauma. And some of them still are very impactful, and some of them not so much. But sometimes what we're looking for is, how is that related to this? So these are our explorations, and our hope is to begin lifting some of this, lightening some of this, and clearing some of this once we've found it. The other influence, of course, is the future. It is what is not yet manifest. It is also a tremendous grace when we open ourselves to the vulnerabilities of being human. And our whole effort in constellation work is to clear as much of the past that's heavy so that the love of the system can flow forward and the future can inform the present, rather than us constantly repeating the past. So that's a little bit of a theoretical overview of what we do and why we do it. And how we do it, you will see when the workshop begins, because I will talk you through that. But I wanted you to have an understanding of what this systemic constellation work is all about. I hope this was helpful, and see you soon.